Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ambassador Sherman, as the Undersecretary of State for Political Affairs under President Obama, you obviously were very much involved in the development of the JCPOA and negotiating the JCPOA. You know that people like myself and many in my party were very, very concerned that that was not an agreement that was effective in preventing Iran from ultimately having a nuclear weapon. As a matter of fact, my read of that agreement is that it would delay Iran from being able to develop a nuclear weapon, but that ultimately they would be permitted to develop a nuclear weapon and have the missiles necessary to deliver that to targets of their interest. Am I correct in that understanding that the agreement would delay but not prohibit Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon?
Senator, people read the agreement differently. The objective of the agreement and I believe the outcome of that agreement was that Iran would never obtain a nuclear weapon. I do completely understand why many senators and many people in Congress and many people in the world believe that if Iran can continue to create fissile material, the stuff that goes inside a nuclear weapon, that they would be concerned that having that ability gives them the option should they choose to go there. So I see the problem quite clearly, and what I have said this morning I think is very important, which is that we are now where we are, which is outside of the agreement. The Iranians have increased their enrichment capacity. They've increased their development of ballistic missiles. They have increased their bad behavior. The maximum pressure campaign may have put chips on the table, but it has not stopped. In fact, they have gone further than they had at the end of the Obama administration. So we will all have to work together on what is the best strategy going forward. The President and the Secretary have said that they want to re-enter the deal if there is compliance for compliance. The Iranians are far away from compliance, so there is a long way to go here.
With time, I'm anxious to get your perspective as to how it is this agreement prohibits Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon. My understanding is the agreement allows them to enrich and to create fissile material down the road, and that they obviously have the capacity at some point to use that fissile material to develop a nuclear weapon under that agreement. It does strike me that the purpose of our strategy with regards to Iran's nuclear program is twofold. Number one is to try and to dissuade them from ever having a nuclear weapon, and that is the ultimate objective. And number two, to exact a very high price on Iran such that they, as well as other nations thinking of going nuclear, would understand the consequence of taking that step, that the price is going to be very, very heavy indeed. I don't understand how re-entering the JCPOA in any way either, number one, dissuades Iran from ever having a nuclear weapon, or makes the price sufficiently high to keep them from pursuing that course. So I guess I'm anxious to get your perspective as to what the purpose would be of re-entering an agreement which does not prohibit them from having a nuclear weapon.
Well, the Biden administration, is my understanding, Senator, has said that they want to create a deal that is longer and stronger, but is part of a comprehensive strategy that deals with all of the elements of concern with Iran, including delivery systems for a nuclear weapon, and to ensure that any agreement ensures that Iran will not obtain a nuclear weapon. I would be glad to, but I think it's probably will get us into the weeds to talk about why the JCPOA did create the assurance that you're looking for. But it's really beside the point now, because we are at a very different place. The geopolitics are very different in the region. There were many things that I disagreed with the previous administration on, but the normalization of relations of countries with Israel, known as the Abraham Accords in the previous administration, was a very good thing. It has changed the geopolitics of the region, and that means that one has to think about this there are different elements on the table. So I think we have to start where we are now and figure out the best way forward. And I would hope that if I'm confirmed, that I have an opportunity to get your views on this And as was laid out at the beginning of this, when the chairman asked for commitments from Mr. McKeon and me, that Congress and the Senate and this committee will be there at the takeoff, not just at the landing.
Do you have any optimism about the prospect of Iran bowing, if you will, to our demands to pull back from their enrichment program and otherwise return to the JCPOA as perhaps adjusted in some ways, making it tougher with the attack last night by Iranian militias in Iraq? It would suggest that they're flexing their muscle, not showing their weakness. Are we reading that wrong? Is there any prospect for them agreeing to a course which is more consistent with our objectives?
I hope so, Senator, but I don't know. I'm not privy to intelligence. I'm not privy to all of the deliberations in the administration. But if confirmed, one has to dig into the details and into the intelligence and into consultations with you, with our allies, with our partners, with Israel, with the Gulf Arab states, with countries around the world that might have information that's useful to making those assessments. So I can't give you a definitive answer today. I certainly hope so, because the other routes, the president, the vice president, the secretary of state, the secretary of defense, all of us, all of you, are committed to ensuring that Iran does not present an existential threat to anyone, not able to deter our and our allies and partners' actions. And if they had a nuclear weapon, that would change that calculus in very significant and very bad ways.
Like you, Ambassador, I do not have access to that intelligence. I'm not a member of the Intelligence Committee, as is Ranking Member Risch. But I would hope you study very carefully the conditions there in Iran, the health and well-being of their leadership, the state of their economy, the public attitudes there. I think there is some prospect that the maximum pressure campaign is the kind of impetus that we might be looking for, and that before we bend and provide to Iran the hoped-for reduction of our sanctions, that we might consider the option of continuing with the maximum pressure campaign. I offer that only as a request on my part. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.